60% of the undergraduates in universities right now are women. It would be higher if they didn't practice kind of silent affection for males. They are falling away from the workforce. They're not marrying. And it's really worrisome, not just for them, it's worrisome for women, because women want to have
Our futures are bound together for, even if one is not heterosexual, but the vast majority of people are, our futures are bound together because we have sons, we have husbands, we have friends, we have, half the planet is the opposite sex for each of us, so obviously our futures are bound together.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that author was going to say women want to have good choices for husbands or partners, and she's interrupted by the other woman there. And what that tells me is that her concerns about men falling behind and 60% of intake at universities being women, etc. It's bad for men in that, it's diminishing their quality of life. That's not her concern. What her concern is that women are going to have less access to resources, and that's men are not on the plantation. And she's saying that men are dropping out from marriage and men are doing this, that and the other, dropping out of society. And we're doing it in droves. MGTOW is probably the fastest growing group of men. I say group as a loose term of men on the planet. There must be millions of us now out here, and good on us. Like, it's the answer. It's the right way to go. It's the best decision you can make as a young man. Is not to get involved with women, and she's saying she's obviously not concerned about a man's quality of life, except in the context of what a woman can get from him. That's what this author is about. And she said at the start that she's worried that women aren't feminist because feminism is pro-women. It doesn't imply that it's anti-men, but as we'll see, there's a lot of that goes on. Anyway, just wanted to leave that little bit in there because there's definitely an edit in the soundtrack when she talks about the intakes in colleges regarding men. So that's an interesting little point.
I wanted to ask you what we lose then in terms of the dynamic between men and women, and this doesn't have to be exclusively romantic or sexual, right? I'm talking about the dynamic between men and women in the workplace, on the street, on the subway, and romantic relationships and friendships and all kinds of relationships between men and women. Have we lost something about the joy of the differences and kind of having a good time with those differences? I mean, a couple examples that that I've pushed back against in my writing, and I was genuinely shocked to read the interpretation of one of my favorite songs in the last few years, "Baby, It's Cold Outside." And this song, if you haven't heard this song in the last few years, has become somewhat controversial. The interpretation is that there's something, that there's some kind of lack of consent, that he's maybe drugging her in her drink. And to me, it was very...
I missed that.
Yeah, you missed this whole conversation? This
No, I didn't
years.
miss the conversation. I missed the implication that there was a date rape in that song.
But when I listen to that song, I hear a beautiful illustration of kind of the dance between men and women. What do we lose when the sort of model of female power goes from Liz Taylor to Liz Lemon?
Well, it's also, one of the things that kept coming up when I talked to young people when I was researching this book is the loss of flirtation. A lot of girls in particular say they would love to flirt and get to know guys and enjoy that. And it still happens. I'm not saying it's gone, but it's much different. I mean, now we're living in the world of swipe right, swipe left. The whole, as you say, the dance of courtship and the chase, which frankly is pleasurable for both men and women, is much cruder now and much less fun.
Yeah, much cruder and much less fun. Okay, so the dance between men and women. Well, women killed that early on in the piece. That's been dead for years now. Any kind of attention from an unwanted man is a sexual assault now, and for a man that means prison or at least a criminal record. If that gets to court, if it doesn't get to court, then it's just social destruction via the Me Too hashtag, believe all women, all that kind of stuff. So the women killed all that, and men have adapted to that position. So there's no chase going on anymore. There's no interaction from MGTOW at all in that regard with women. And then along came the dating apps, and you got your swipe left, swipe right, and that just exposed the women's nature, really, the promiscuity and the I don't know what you call it, just the hypergamy, I guess it is, of women. And it like, you'll often hear women who are in a relationship, they say they have a plan B, right? So they're not committed to the relationship. There's no commitment there from a man's point of view. And of course there's a complete lack of trust with women now. With the Me Too movement brought that to the fore, and as far as respect goes, well, respect is earned, and obviously you're not going to respect women who behave in that kind of manner. So all of that is gone, and it was the women that killed it, frankly. Like, men would still be chasing women in the traditional way if it had any benefit, and it doesn't. So it's just gone, and it's not going to come back. Like, don't kid yourself that it'll ever come back. No.
And what we lose is the sense that we're dealing here with something that's actually incredibly profound. One of the mistakes of the sexual revolution was in believing that it was not important. When I got to college in the 1970s, they said, oh, it's just like a handshake, or, it's chaste makes waste, and various other slogans. Or if you were a woman who was just going to use a man for sex, that was a great step forward for the sisterhood. But the fact is that this, I think, is in deep denial about a fact of human nature and a fact about women's natures, which it is important.
So sex is just the same as a handshake. Chaste makes waste, and having sex with a man just for the sex is a step forward for the sisterhood. And then she goes on to say that there's a loss there for human nature and the woman's nature. Now, what that says to me is that women can easily influence their sisters into changing female behaviour. Like, because this hasn't come from men, right? This is women. This is the feminism in the 1970s has put out in their literature, their handbook, if you like, that sex with a man for just sex sake is great for a step forward for the sisterhood, as if there is such a thing as a sisterhood for a start. And then there's the slogans that the left wing particularly like. So it's just like a handshake. No, this is the women getting themselves in this position, and now they're learning to regret what's happened, and no sympathy from MGTOW. MGTOW couldn't care less. This is navel gazing at its finest. You know, you've got yourselves where you are. It's not men that are keeping you down. It's that you can't get up on your own. That's what it looks like to me. You've got every opportunity to get ahead and you can't do it because you're too busy navel gazing. And, you know, you want to run the world. Well, thank God I'm MGTOW, thank God I'm out of it.
Let's look at that story that ran in the New Yorker a few months ago, the cat people.
Yeah.
So it showed, it was fiction, but it told a deep truth. This couple get to know each other through a texting flirtation. They finally go out on a date, and they have sex on the first date, and it's not good sex for her, and she really doesn't like him anymore and has all these mixed feelings. Fine, okay. But then he starts to communicate with her afterwards, and she starts to get these texts that suddenly sound a little frightening and a little bit threatening. What happened there?
Yeah, okay, so I haven't read the story. I don't get the New Yorker. But so what she's saying there is fiction, okay, and it resonated with her. It appealed to her. She's remembered it. She finds it or related to a deeper understanding of the human nature, human psyche, or whatever it is. And, you know, woman, man, flirt, have sex, woman not happy, man then continues to text her, and it becomes sinister or threatening. Male perpetrator, female victim. Right, that's the narrative that our societies are sold, right? It's male perpetrator, female victim. And she enjoyed that narrative, right? It resonated with her. So this is the feminist viewpoint on the world. Male perpetrator, female victim. And that's all that is. So there's no deeper understanding of the world around her. This is just comfort food. It's comforting to know that male perpetrator, female victim. And that's all that she's said so far.
They had sex, which unleashes passions in the human heart that are sometimes dark, that have to be dealt with, that have to be controlled. And to say that sex is always just a roll in the hay and it's not, you know, who cares and everybody should be doing it all the time and, you know, you don't have to be in a relationship or the hell with commitment. Well, you know what? We're finding out misery, and it's because I think we're denying something that is real and deep. And if you want to know about it, watch any opera, read literature.
Always ends in tragedy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's not the case across the board.
Yeah. So that, like, she makes a point there, and we don't hear it. And that's not me doing that. That's the video. It's been edited and they've cut the soundtrack. But she does, the last word she says regarding that is misery. At least that's what I've got out of it while I've been trying to edit it. And the thing is, like, so she's made a point there that is not allowed to get out into the wild as far as the feminists are concerned. You know, this is their thought control, mind control. Control the narrative shtick, seeing it all the time in the news, in the mainstream news these days, where the reporters are activists rather than reporters, journalists. So yeah, I'm not sure what she said in that point, but you know, c'est la vie, I guess, on that one. Bit disappointing, really.
Our lives. So speaking about the dark side, right, of man's nature that you argue was largely unleashed by the sexual revolution, although it existed before, but now it was sort of sanctioned by society. On the flip side, right, I don't know. So this is something that is controversial even among kind of women on the right, I think. But so I'm starting to believe that feminism also encourages the worst instincts of women. You write about back in the 70s. Oh, sorry. I said that feminism encourages the worst instincts or some of the worst natural instincts of women or amplifies them in some way. You write about...
Yeah, so there you are. So that wasn't an edit. She just, the mic didn't pick up what she said, and the audience requested clarification from her. And so she, feminism encourages the worst aspects of female nature. Well, who would have thought that could possibly happen? My goodness. Golly, there's a revolutionary thought. Anyway, so it goes to my point that they've edited the soundtrack on this video so that what this woman is saying against feminism and the sexual revolution and that particular point is not allowed to get out into the wild. That's interesting. To me, it's telling, very telling on the feminist movement and their control of the narrative.
In the 70s, and I'd never heard this, these consciousness-raising sessions, right, to sort of elevate your consciousness outside of the patriarchy-constructed identity that has been left to you. And the title of it, one of them, was Bitch Sisters Bitch. I mean, what does feminism, or do you think, I guess the first question would be, do you think that feminism encourages dark instincts in women of, sort of resentment or dissatisfaction? And do you think that there's maybe a parallel there with the worst instincts of men? Different, but both kind of dark sides of human nature.
Well, I do think that feminists, in their hostility to men and in their willingness to tar all men as a problem. So, for example, on most college campuses now, you will hear the phrase toxic masculinity. This is thought to be the way to deal with rape and sexual assault, is that we have to sort of bleach this out of men's natures, and if we can do that, then... Well, of course, what does that say to men? It says that there's something toxic about being a male.
Well, I'll tell you what it says to young men. It says, don't try. It says, don't bother striving against the stream, against the river of life. It's all an uphill battle, and you'll only end up toxic anyway, because it's your toxic masculinity, and you can't get rid of it. And if you try, you'll just fail. It's part of your nature to be toxic, and also you don't bother talking about it, because that's just mansplaining. So that'll get you nowhere. Don't fight us feminists, we know better. That's what it says to the young men. It says you're better off just with your PlayStation, playing your games, take your drugs, Ritalin or whatever it is, and settle down, numb yourself against the iniquities of life, and allow us to continue with our navel-gazing exercise unhindered from your input on any subject, since it's not worthy of us feminists. To the older men, the toxic masculinity just says, get fucked, you bitch. Fuck off. So there's two aspects to it from a male point of view. I think eventually the men will, as they grow older, end up with the older man's point of view, and hopefully they'll go MGTOW at an early age and come across men who can help them attain that view of get fucked, you fucking mole attitude early on in life, and then therefore struggle against the stream again, and end up finding a better life for themselves, finding a backbone, being able to stand up and call themselves men, and be proud in it. Be proud of your masculinity. That's what built the world you live in. So hopefully that's what can happen. But yeah, as far as the toxic masculinity goes, not worth listening to, really, like most of what feminists say.
And instead of saying most of you are great people, and we know that, but a few are bad, and here are the things that we consider bad, and that's what they are. But just to call it toxic masculinity, it just embitters relations between the sexes. I think that one of the things that has caused a backlash, and I don't recommend this, but I had to do it for my research on my book, the Manosphere online is full of furious, angry men who hate women. It's misogyny on steroids.
Yeah, so there's your hypocrisy on full display there. All right, so the women, they can call men toxic masculinity. It's throughout men, nothing that they can do about it. It's just their toxic nature. But what we should do is say, we know it's not all of you, it's just some of you, and this is what we deem to be wrong about masculinity, and if you could just comply with our wishes, things will be all right, and then she says, I don't recommend you go into the Manosphere, which I don't believe exists, but there's plenty of men out there who are saying to women, this is what we don't like about you in your toxic femininity, and this is our opinion, is what the Manosphere, in air quotes, it actually is. And she's telling the people in the audience, don't go there because you're going to be exposed to what men are actually saying. You've got to listen to me. I'm a feminist, and I speak for men as well because I own the narrative. So, this is absolute fucking hypocrisy from this woman, and she's so unaware of what she's saying. The double standard of it, it's ridiculous. This is why you just don't bother with feminism. It is truly the most ridiculous thing that's come out of a university ever, and yet the women cling to it. It's an appalling state of affairs. Appalling.
And it's partly a reaction to what they perceive to be the man-hating feminists. We need to have a lot more appreciation of masculinity that is the best things about men. So one of the things that I purposely put into this book were examples of men doing things just because that's how men are. That's the best that men are. So in the Aurora, Colorado theater shooting, when this gunman opened fire on all those people, 4 men put their own bodies over their girlfriends to save their lives, and 3 were killed. On the train in France, when a terrorist came out and was firing on people, 6 men jumped to their feet. They had nothing. They just put their bodies in the way and they went after him. That kind of self-sacrifice, that kind of instinctive protectiveness toward women is exactly the sort of thing that we should honor in men.
Right. So this absolutely pisses me off. I can't tell you how much. Now, if a feminist ever tells you that feminism is just about equality, that you know for a fact that is bullshit. All right. These 2 women are right-wing feminists. They're conservative feminists. The left openly calls for the death of all men. Right? There's Clementine Ford is an Australian example of it, but that happens all over the Western world. Every Father's Day, Clementine Ford in Australia will call for the death for men to die. To be, when the COVID was on, she was saying the only problem with COVID is it's not killing men fast enough. So, I mean, and she's a left-wing feminist, and the left-wing are open about wanting men killed, dead. And here's a right-wing feminist, and she's saying the noblest thing a man can do is die in the service of women. Right? So it doesn't matter what side of politics these feminists are on, they want the death of men. That's what they're striving for. It's men to die. And they want men to be social. These two here, these right-wing ones, want men socialised to understand that if they can die in the service of women, that's the most noble objective that a man can have. Now, if that isn't get on that plantation, son, plough that fucking furrow until you are dead in my service, I don't know what is. So this idea that feminism is about equality is rubbish. And the idea that there are men out there who hate women, can you not see why? Can you not? Does it not appear isn't it obvious that when you're sitting there as a terrorist wanting men dead for whatever reason, whether it's just that you hate them or that they should be die in the service of women, I mean, this is the crux of feminism. Make no mistake about it. This is what they want. Men dead. And it is from the left and the right. Now, and it is accepted by the mainstream. It is lauded by the mainstream media. The mainstream society wants men dead. That's unbelievable, but true. It's all around you. You've just got to look at it. It's there. I mean, why is the West not pumping arms into Ukraine at the moment? It's because the Ukrainians are losing 100 soldiers a day. Who are the soldiers? Men. Right? It's just everywhere. And it needs to stop. It just needs... And MGTOW need to be aware of it, and they need to just get out and live their lives. Get away from mainstream society and live your life to its full every day. That's the only way to live.
And that is how you channel, in my judgment, their natural aggression, their natural rambunctiousness, and you channel it toward goodness. So you say, yeah, you have a lot of aggression, but you should be using it to protect the weak. And you should be using it toward good. And not toward, God forbid, hurting women or children, but...
Right. Natural rambunctiousness. It's called testosterone. And it doesn't need to be channeled. We know how to control it. We're men. Right? We learn growing up what testosterone is, and you women wouldn't have a fucking clue about it, so fuck off channeling us into this, that and the other. Fuck off. Now, as far as hurting children goes, there are psychopaths and pedophiles out there who do hurt children. Some of them are men. Okay? But as far as my experience goes, men do not hurt children. Right? Even if the children aren't theirs, they do not hurt children. Most men won't hurt women or children. And I'm talking about men who have been imprisoned for murder, these are the men, I know men like this. Absolutely violent thugs who will never hurt a woman or a child. Right? So don't sit there telling men we've got to learn how not to hurt women and children. It's in our nature not to. Right? Now, there are outliers in this male nature, which is the psychos and the fucking pedophiles. Right? Some of them are in the priesthood, for fuck's sake. So stop with this, we've got to control men fucking malarkey bullshit, you fucking hag. Right? Men don't need to be controlled. And like, part of my nature is to absolutely rebel against any attempt to control me. I can't handle it psychologically, being controlled. It just unleashes rage in me, absolute fucking rage. MGTOW's the only answer for me. I'm at peace with MGTOW when I don't have to put up with fucking the propaganda and the bullshit coming from the fucking feminists. Now, that's just a personal note, you know. And I don't control other people. Okay, don't make that mistake. Don't ever think that I'm attempting. I prefer absolute freedom of everything. Everything in moderation, basically. That's my view. Yeah. No, you don't need to channel masculinity into anything. And as far as the society goes now, good luck trying. You know, you women have absolutely fucked everything up with and it's your nature to do so. This is why chaos is feminine. All right, this Jordan Peterson's talked about that. Chaos is feminine, and that's what we get when women decide they've got to have their input, and it just ends up in fucking chaos. You got women being raped in women's prisons by men who claim to be women. You've got fucking men pretending to be women and going into female toilets and raping them, and there's only fucking children doing it. You've unleashed the worst in the world, you feminists, and it's not going to get any better until you people understand what you've done, and you can't repair it, in my opinion. Like, it's a generational thing, and it's just ridiculous. And you've got there because you claim to be the victims. It's just, no, not my cup of tea. MGTOW's the way to go.
You're the protector. And I just think that would be a lot healthier if we had more appreciation among feminists for what's noble and best in men.
So I think there's critique from both the right and the left of feminism for this reason. It seems to address the concerns of a small minority of wealthy, mostly wealthy or upper class, college-educated women